There she is.
Nothing's ever easy.
No, especially you, where you are.
Okay. Glad you all are here, and I'm so thrilled to get to introduce these interesting characters.
Okay, that's a good start.
They've all been kind of hanging around Unity for many years, and as they've been doing so, every one of them has developed this reputation for being an outstanding teacher. And in my interaction with folks, they'd start talking about what these people really do and the impact that they've had on their lives and their churches and everything else. So each person is up here because of my selfishness. I wanted to listen to them. I wanted to learn from them. So I said, okay, I'll use SEE as an excuse. And so they are a gift to me that I'm sharing with you. And so let me introduce, I think, 3 out of the 4 I've been on the board with.
Yes.
So we have grown and prayed more and prayed some more.
And grown and grown some more.
Yeah, and we've got to do that part too. So this is Eileen Moore, and Eileen's from
Claremont.
the deep south there called Claremont, California. And where was your church when you were on the board? You were
Springfield, Virginia.
Virginia. Okay, she was the other side of the world.
Mm-hmm.
And she will be teaching our Metaphysics 1 and Metaphysics 2.
Actually, Metaphysics 1 and 1, 2.
1, 2. Okay.
Two
One
different.
part, one.
Yeah, okay.
One part 2. Just so you don't get confused and say, wait, I wasn't taking 2.
So what is that, metaphysics 1?
There's Metaphysics 1, and 1, 2, and there's Metaphysics 2, 1, and 2, 2. You should see what it's like to teach all 4 of them online.
I'm glad you're doing that. And this is Linda Lowry, and Linda is from the Detroit area, and she is a legend in that area. You talk to anyone and they start talking to you about classes and experiences that they've had from Linda. And she missed her very last board meeting,
Yes.
and we missed her at conference this year. But it's been a great ride and a great journey.
Thank you. I had, my granddaughter graduated from preschool. Well, that's my great-granddaughter. My granddaughter graduated from middle school, and my son graduated from college.
Oh my
God. So I had to make a very, very tough decision. And it was all in that time frame. And so I want to say what a mutual benefit and an honor and a privilege it is to be with these wonderful people who are not just friends or colleagues, but they're part of a family of which I feel very blessed to experience, either when we're together one-on-one or we're across the globe. And in metropolitan Detroit, of which I hope many of you will come for the convention, in 2012, we're right on the border of Canada. So bring your passports. And from my home, which is in a northern suburb called Southfield, Michigan, to the Unity Church in Windsor, Ontario, is 30 minutes. And that's going through customs. On a good day. On a real good day. Because sometimes you have to pray your way through customs, you know. But so I have the privilege of teaching and speaking at different churches in metropolitan Detroit and other places as well. So it's an honor and a blessing to come across the continent and be with you guys. Thank you.
And Linda's going to be doing, what do you, Old Testament metaphysics and Jesus teaching.
Jesus teachings in the Bible and Bible interpretation, Hebrew scriptures. So it's going to be a lot of fun. You're going to be very surprised at how much you know intuitively.
I hit him with King David today, and I didn't even blink, so they're ready
I
for
cover
it.
all the kings.
and we'll see if she thinks it's the same thing I do.
King David.
And Diana McDaniel, the part of the gift is Diana is just down here in San Lorenzo, but she has, actually, she and George, this is her husband George, and she is the Unity minister, and he has the awesome responsibility of keeping her spiritually attuned. As having a spouse who does that for me and keeps my life on track, I know she's responsible for some things in the ministry and all the rest is his. So, but these, we had an experience. First of all, George has been part of the touchstone in the prosperity of our church. Because he was that angel that helped us break through at times. We needed breakthroughs into the banking world and that sort of thing. But part of these two is that they are so deeply rooted in the knowledge of the principles of prosperity, and they are able to articulate it not just in the way that Charles Fillmore wrote it, but in the way you actually work with it in what is happening today. So there is going to be some amazing today stuff that you're going to want to tag into and learn. And thank you guys.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes, this is my prosperity demonstration right here. That's what I like to say about George. He is. So thank you for having us. We're glad to be here. We've been here before, but today it's like a brand new day.
Yeah.
You know, it's not like it was last week even when you look at the stock market. But so we're looking forward to being with you. And you'll have to ask him hard questions.
I will simply add to that. After 42 years of being married to this wonderful woman, I've learned to do what I'm told.
Yes, dear.
That's two magic words. Yes,
dear. It works two ways.
So I did share at the service that because these are friends and because they're all Unity ministers and teachers, they're all fair game. Which means you can ask them anything you want, anytime you want. Expect them to answer, and let me say that one of the reasons that I love Unity is I had been in some other spiritual paths and churches, and I would get to that point where I had a question and I'd ask the minister. And the answer I got was, you take it on faith. And what I understood that meant was that he didn't know the answer. And one of the differences is that Unity has chosen to intentionally engage spiritual knowledge at depth. And well, none of us pretend that we really are able to articulate that. Everyone here is engaged in it at depth, engaged the study of it at depth. And when they don't know, they know the path to knowledge. So so this is something that is one of the reasons I'm sitting here as a Unity minister. Is my understanding, if we're one with this infinite intelligence, we get to ask the questions and get the answers. And so have at it. So anybody have a question just to stimulate and get things going? Brie.
Okay, so I understood from readings that God, divine mind, creates divine ideas, and that, for instance, the idea of the ideal man, the spiritual man, which is in each one of us, the Christ consciousness, is one of the divine ideas. So what I don't understand, there was a statement somewhere in the metaphysics books that God did not create the material world.
Under what?
Create the material world.
So who created?
She's already moving on to
Who
what,
created
class
man?
5 or 6.
Who created man? The man as the material man. If the spiritual man is God's idea.
I'm going to go back to some early language you used, which is create. And an easier word, I think, for us to work with is ideated.
Right.
Because when we think of create, we think of God took the clay and made the person, and there we had people. But in the way we look at it metaphysically now, God, if you want to, keep using that term, which I think carries so much stuff of made, that it's a little bit hard to do that. So divine mind, as you used, is a little bit easier for us to work with. So divine mind ideated all divine ideas. And so we're not one of them. Hardest thing for us to accept is we're all of them. So we are the expression of the full ideation. Now we express it on this plane as our consciousness is ready to do. And at some point, our consciousness became ready to do that in this form. Not because some God somewhere said, I think people ought to have 2 legs and 2 arms and stand upright and whatever, but because in consciousness, the consciousness of divine mind, there became the evolutionary level for it began to express this way. So we created it isn't any more accurate really in my mind than God created it. Out of consciousness and evolution and that divine mind and divine ideas has emanated at the level of consciousness that has evolved. So nobody, no thing, no one created humankind. It came forth from the ideation of all potential. It could have, and of course did come forth also as a snail and a frog and whatever, but it also came forth as humankind. So as humans, we come to think that we are so different, unique, special, that we somehow were created differently, uniquely, specially, and in consciousness, because we evolved into that consciousness, we have evolved to a level of consciousness that appears to be at least beyond the things around us. So a lot of times the question, that's why it's a little bit difficult, the question of, who created or did we create? So God, as it's sort of been pinned on, didn't create us or this world or this building. But out of all ideation, all divine mind, the evolutionary emanation of idea into whatever form evolution began, brought it to be, that's how it was created.
So what about co-creation?
So is that less or more? Well, that's the interesting thing. See, Paul will say that co-creation is, there's so many misleading terms because we're very used to co meaning 2. And if we had 2, we don't have 1, and oneness is not real to us. So for us to get to the place of really accepting that oneness is usually a lot of steps in consciousness. Because our language, and I'm a real language stickler, so if you're taking my classes, I will be asking your permission in the morning to suggest that you look at your language a lot. Because one of the ways that we have come to believe we're separate is through language. Well, maybe the way. Probably the way. So we're really going to look at our language and look at co and with and a lot of other separating kinds of terms. Thank you for that question. Ask a Bible question. Or ask George, who to buy on Wall Street.
Almost anybody.
And I think if we look at things, and let's say if we take the Bible as allegorical and ancient stories, and you look at that part of Genesis where it says, and God said, let us create man in our own image. If we move into a consciousness of which we are that, we are all that there is. We are all a part of infinite creative intelligence. And that part of infinite creative intelligence, and this is a lot of what Eileen was saying, that part of infinite creative intelligence is what we are expressing that is unique and divine to us. We are the emanations of the collective consciousness of which we represent a part of. So we are here to be more cognizant of whose we are. And as we go through our paths in life, we're evolving to higher planes of consciousness. It is in a community like this which allows you to get deeper, more profound understanding of who you are and how you resonate with the divinity that sometimes we feel a separation from. But the more that you become cognizant of your relationship with divinity, then the more your lives are enhanced and enriched. And what I have found most fascinating to me is that when we are communicating in the classroom setting, deep within the DNA of every individual is the truth. And the more that you feel open and receptive to express truth, the awakening happens within your own being. And so when we come here, if you think about the whole evolution of our family, your uncles, your aunts, your grandparents, great-grandparents, there is infinite wisdom already embedded within their DNA. Therefore, it exists within your own. And the whole opportunity to be in settings where you can learn is to awaken to the truth that you already know. And so we're just facilitating the truth.
Don't you just love it? I actually was thinking about an example of, when I thought about medicine. I thought about how it was maybe 100 or 200 years ago, how humans treated each other medically or however, and how it's changed. You know, that it evolved, that it has, we have this idea that we go to, an old phrase we used to use in Unity was go to God first and go to man as God directs in terms of for wisdom or health or whatever we might be working on. And I was thinking about how it's changed, how things have been, I believe, have improved, but then that's questionable whether it's improved. But how things have improved. You know, we in this country drink cleaner water. You know, we have doctors with different machines, and we have different tools that we're using. And so those ideas come forth, and there's a new ideation, in a sense, that things are different and of a higher something. So I was just thinking of what's practical, because it's such a difficult concept sometimes to grasp that we are it.
Yeah, it's kind of big.
You know, so the new stuff that comes forth, wherever the ideas come from, out of the mind or divine mind, they show up in beautiful ways, and then we have things, I guess you could say, that have been created or ideated. I'm done. I was just thinking.
I would simply add to that, I would add nothing of a theological bent to this. These are the theologians, but I'm very much on the ground numbers kind of person, concrete numbers. but I have seen things over the course of the past 23 years in Unity that clearly demonstrate that there are higher things at work here all the time. I've seen things happen that in my narrow framework of thinking in terms of economics, dollars and cents, and this input, you get this output. But I've seen the output be much more than logic says it could have been. And that can only come when there's something at work that's not explained by the concrete laws that I have come to accept. And I'm in danger of wandering onto very shaky ground here. But the bottom line is that it's made me a better person, a better professional, clearly a better human being. And it's a very comforting feeling to know that you're not alone. I don't know another way to say it. And with that, I hope my wife doesn't make me walk back to Oakland.
You know, I would like the opportunity to invite you all to come Wednesday night. We're going to do a forgiveness ceremony that night. And I have something to share. Just today at church, a lady came to me. Her husband has created an app for the iPhone. It's been newly introduced to the app world. And we did a forgiveness ceremony a few weeks ago in church on a Sunday morning. And we have been talking about forgiveness for 2 or 3 weeks. She said that when she said I didn't have much to forgive. She said, but I was talking about how you have to let go of resentment, let go of anger, let go of whatever those things you're holding on to, in order to allow the flow to happen. She said that she decided that she would go home. She did the forgiveness ceremony at work. I mean, at church, it's work, but at church. She said that when she went home, she decided that she needed to forgive her husband. She said that for the last 2 years, it had been very difficult for them financially. She felt like he should have been supporting her better, he should have been smarter, he should have been blah, blah, whatever, all the things. So she said she started to forgive him, and she's talking to him, and he says, you don't need to forgive me. And she says, but please let me do it because I need to do it for myself. And so he listened. She said she cried, he cried, they hugged and all that kind of stuff. She said the very next day, because their app was moving very slowly, people were not paying the 99 cents to use it, right? She said the very next day, they got a $200,000 offer and contract for their app stuff. I said, that's a testimonial. I said, will you share that in church on Sunday? Open it up. You know, there's something that happens.
You know, and I'd like to go back to what George was saying as well about what Unity does for you. When I first came to Unity, my son was, he was 18 months, he's 37. And what was interesting is that he's one of those kids, well, he's not a kid anymore, but it was in the wintertime, and we have blizzards in Michigan. And so sometimes you'll see us with North Pole jackets on to keep the wind from just blowing on you. And so he's sitting in the car, the 3 of us are driving, and I look down, and it's as if he rips open his jacket. And this would have been the 2nd or 3rd jacket for that season, and it was February. And so my daughter, who was sitting next to him, said, Mommy, he did not rip his jacket open. And I said, how did you know that that was what I was thinking? And so my other little daughter, at the time, I guess she was about 4, and she had her thumb in her mouth, and she takes her thumb out of her mouth, and she looks at it and she said, her mind was with your mind. while your mind was with his mind. That's how she knew what you were thinking. So this is the year of the pacer, right? My lemon mobile, that's really a prayer mobile. And I said, sweetheart, where did you learn that kind of process of thinking? And she says, I learned it in Sunday school. So the teachings, and even having spent this time with my son these last several days, and his, as you know, the job market fluctuated over the last several years. And one of the things that he always reminds me is that his teachings from Unity have kept him grounded. So he's not bothered by the fluctuation of the economic system. He's not bothered by the fluctuation of the job market. He has to keep perfectly focused on the Spirit of God that is within him that allows him to create. And so I worked in children's ministry for about 25 years. And being able to take these truths that have been encapsulated in curriculum that can work for you is one of the, I think, the most beautiful gifts that Unity gives that is unprecedented within any other movement in the world.
Question number 2.
You don't even have to give a minister, right?
I was wondering if you could further define the word ideation. It's the first time I've ever heard it.
Oh. Define, see, there's the tricky part. Kind of stop trying to define them as much as allow them to express more what works. So creation wasn't working as well because we're so focused on what that means. So you kind of go a little bit deeper level. So it is harder to define because it's not a thing that happens. Because God, divine mind expression is not a thing that happens. So perhaps the fact that I don't have a definition is really best. But I don't. I mean, it just is a word that at least gets us a little bit deeper than the image of creating, making, putting together. It's there. It's already there. Always has been, always will. It's that eternal thing that's pretty hard for us to really grasp. And it's just always been there as pure potential, if you will. And so ideation is more, in my mind, something coming from that pure potential is based on consciousness evolving. That's the best I can do, actually, right there.
And that's why we need our metaphysical dictionary and sometimes our revealing word.
Well, ideation isn't in there, so I won't help you.
I just want to say that you're making my brain hurt. I don't know yet.
It's so much fun.
The ideation, when I was interviewed for ministerial school, there was a team in Seattle and I flew in and met with this team of ministers. And so they asked me how creation takes place or something like that. And so I began to explain how the movement of potential through time, as it moves into greater density, refines its purpose. That went on like...
Now that makes my brain hurt.
And at the end of it, one of the ministers said, "You mean ideation?"
That was the only answer they wanted.
I saw a hand in the back. Yes.
I read the first chapter of the metaphysical book and tried to get my brain around it, highlighted, and I read it again. And Lisa, I understand, because it's, I can't, how can I grasp this? And then I stood back from it, completely stood back from it. And I was tossing around absolute versus relative truths. What do I really know to be true? And for me, I had to get out of my own way. And then, ideas started bubbling and popping, okay, can I put this on paper? I don't care. The main thing is I've gotten past step one, And it is in a heart language, it's not in a brain language.
Well, I was going to say, remember what the book is called, why the book is called that.
Right, it's a heart
Because,
language.
it really wrapping our brain around it is where we get kind of in trouble. Because
Exactly.
our brain has been taught to work from our basic understanding of really old definitions. So what we want to do is wrap our heart around it, and it's a perfect way to say that we can stand back from it. So we're not going to be doing a lot of brain or wrapping our brain around it, or really defining a lot of things, as much as we just really want to work with the experience of allowing different language, different energies to kind of unfold within us. Because as Linda said, and we all know that, we all use those words, it's all within us. But again, within is not a word I like either. No. But, and that's because, again, we have a notion of what within us means. Well, where is it in there? It's in there somewhere. It's not really that either. So, if we keep trying to brain that, we're going to keep being pretty frustrated. But if we can just go to our heart, what is it to me? If I can just allow myself to know. And it is very difficult for us to accept, and I'm 28 years into unity, not much longer than some of this, but I can't even imagine 28 years ago that I could look at any of this the way I do now. I had to let it be with me in lots of different ways and phases. So the idea that you would take that metaphysics or any really of the books and kind of get it on that level, wow, you teach me. That isn't how it worked for me at all. I really had to be with it and be with it many, many times. So my invitation in teaching this class online or in person is really just being, breathing. And we'll do that a lot. People start going really up here, but I don't understand this and this. We're going to just stop and breathe into it. Because we can get so caught up here that we won't have any fun at all. That's just not the idea. or you shut it out. You're saying, I don't know if I'll be there or not. I didn't know either. I ran from my first Unity service. I ran. Literally. We can go back for 6 months. And finally Mark said, I'm going back. You want to come? Come. Don't want to come? No, it's okay. Because I'm sure there was something in my very being that was really afraid to face how much stuff I had put on top of what I really am. So there's been a lot of layers. You've heard that layer peeling. Wow. I don't know how many layers an onion has. It's still way more for me. So just let it allow and stand back and breathe into it. It's a lot. And it's great. And it's really only one thing. But we just have trouble accepting it.
It's a wonderful experience. I have taught Jesus' teachings in the Bible, I think, about 4 times. And the last time I taught this class was in Canada. And the individuals that had come to the class were Catholics, and they were of Jewish descent, so they were not that familiar with the teachings of Jesus. And one of the things that happened at the conclusion of the class is that they were excited because they wound up with another perspective. But that perspective was something born as a result of the evolution of their own soul. And so I invite you to look at this not as something that potentially can be overwhelming, but sit with it so that it's a lovely and enhancing experience, because your soul already knows what we're going to share. And why not have fun doing it? you know, because you're taking time out of your life. And so this is a time as adults that we need to embrace and come to this learning as a child would come into a new experience with no inhibitions, no hindrances, other than the fact, I'm going to meet some more friends, I'm going to have a good time. And that's the way I think we should look at this, because it's fun, right, David?
It is.
Absolutely.
I've been a student of the Course in Miracles for the last 10 years, and I've gotten tremendous value out of it. And of course, it's Jesus speaking to a new age. And I was just wondering, what are some of your reflections or observations or thoughts about Course in Miracles?
When I'm healed, I'm not healed alone. That's from A Course in Miracles.
It's been 30 years for me. So. But
I know it's
think
pretty widely taught now, even in some Episcopalian churches.
It's wonderful.
Yeah.
I think all things are good. All things are opening you up to another dimension in consciousness. It usually boils down to what resonates as truth within your soul. So there are many pathways.
And there are lots of things I can still remember resonating from all those years ago, you know. And I use in my own life, you're never angry for the reason you think. I mean, that was one of the best revelations I ever had. Because when we get angry, we so often think, what's happening in front of me is the reason I think. And it never is. So I learned that. So those kinds of things, you know, it really is what I always say I learned all my Course in Miracles secondhand. Alan Cohen. Dragon doesn't, we were just talking about this a couple days ago. Dragon Doesn't Live Here Anymore was our very first metaphysical, spiritual, whatever book. Mark was raised Jewish and I was raised Catholic. You know, we came together, didn't know what to do. So that book and his stories and his energies, which all come out of the Course in Miracles. But to do it from that big book was much more daunting to me than to read Alan Cohen and to listen to him talk from his really sweet, loving way about his parrot. So I learned more from his parrot than from the book. That's me. You know, it's easier for me to learn from the story. I love it for those reasons. And Love is Letting Go of Gerald Jim Paulson. I learned an incredible amount from him very early on.
I used to facilitate A Course in Miracles prior to going to Unity's Ministerial School. And I studied it. I went through it 3 years with the workbook, the textbook, and before they had it all in one book. And I loved it. And when I decided I was going to go to Unity, I had to leave the language behind. There's a whole different Unity speak. You know, so it's a different, and it's very similar to Unity. It's not drastically different. There are some differences in regards to the world, how we perceive the world. But I enjoyed it. I still quote from it from time to time. But I set it aside because I then went whole hog into Unity. You know, so do you remember, some of you, the Betamax and the VHSs, you know, remember that? Well, there was religious science, and my first church was Christian Science, and that's what I grew up in. And then there were other groups, and for me, Unity was the one that was the VHS. Even though Betamax was the purer, finer picture, if you'll remember, it was a better quality, the VHS was more widespread, and it still did the same thing. You know? So the libraries had VHSs and, you know, all that kind of stuff. So I ended up, I chose Unity because it felt like me. It felt like home. And when the first time I walked in the door, it was like, I was home. Like they had, I used to say it was like the carpet was cut to fit the room without having to measure it, you know, it was just the way it was. So but A Course in Miracles helped me understand unity better. And all the other things that I studied helped me understand unity better, which is very interesting to me. When I took French and Spanish, I began to understand English. You know, so, and right now I'm just a unity person. And sometimes I throw in some Course in Miracles. All paths lead to the top of the mountain.
If we've got a moment, Jeannie, I think you had a list of information for us.
Oh, my books this morning?
We are going to the third dimension now.
Relative world.
So here we are. These are just informations for those of you who are taking classes. Your name tag is your badge, your admittance to the classes, to lunch. There is drop-in, and Reverend David invited people. That is a fee of $20 per class you drop in. So it's set in stone. If you're not familiar with Unity, our bathrooms are on the east side of the community room, on the west side of the community room. But on Thursday, we have a business group that meets in the morning and in the afternoon. And on Wednesday, we have one that meets in the morning. So if those happen to be full, there are some unisex bathrooms in the office, and you can just go down, around, and to the east side of the building, and they're available.
Give them a compass.
Oh, give them a compass, okay.
East side of the school.
Right,
Yeah.
Of this building.
yeah.
The sanctuary.
This building, yeah, the sanctuary. So when we're out the patio, down the stairs, right over there. Parking should be fine except on Thursdays and possibly Wednesday morning. On those days, you might need to park on the street. We apologize, but the groups that are meeting here are wonderful, and they're helping to pay for this lovely building. So we appreciate them. The book center will be regular hours from Monday through Thursday. Barbara King will be here at 7:30, and so she'll be kind of on a demand basis. We can bring her in and let her work on office work and other times. Sappho has agreed to be here Monday evening to help you out, and then Barbara King will be here on Friday from 7:30 to 3. So we'll have book center hours at those times. John Rexroth is doing our lunches, so if he was here, we'd give him wherever we can, so I'll do it.
Yeah, he's hauling food in there.
That's right.
Way to go, John.
He has printed the menu to the SED staff, wonderful salads and sandwich things, vegetarian, gluten-free bread, and it's just a wonderful service he does for us. You need to wear your name tag, because it says lunch right on it if you've purchased it. In leading to that, the sanctuary, we have no food or drink except water in here. And somebody brought my covered iced tea in, and I was going to leave it out. So before classes, there will be refreshments. Please have them outside, don't bring them in. Also with the sanctuary, there's only 10 minutes between classes. So if these wonderful, exciting discussions really need to go on, just take them out to the patio so that TAs and the next teacher can set up for the next class. We just want it to be wonderful for all of you. You have TAs that will be working with you, so share what your needs are. They'll be really excited to serve you. These wonderful people come here. Their expenses are paid for, but they don't receive remuneration. So on Thursday, in every class, we will take a love offering, and that will be part of a thank you to them. So come on Thursday, drop right in. And we apologize, there are no public phones available. So if you have your cell phones, that's great. Don't have them on during class. But there are no phones available. And have I forgotten anything that you can think of? Wonderful team. Okay, we really are excited for this week. We're so happy to have you here, and we want it to run as smoothly as possible, so thank you.
So, let's get up and connect some way or other, and we'll close with prayer together. We need to get up and move and touch.
Okay.
Yes.
Move and touch.
Move and touch.
The last night
Yeah.
I had fun with the super dance.
Move and touch.
We are a multi-layered organic being, so take that deep breath through your heart. As you breathe out and let go, just let yourself be open. And now breathe in the marvelous light and love that is everyone in this room. This intention of greater awareness, this expansion of light. Now breathe it out that you share it with everyone in the room. Your excitement, your open heart, your illuminated mind. Mother, Father, God, you are the light, the illumination, the wisdom. You are the power. You are the understanding. And we are one, we are open, and you flow through us and as us. And thank you, God, that in the midst of it all, in every single experience, we get to have such fun. God is good.
All the time.
God is good.
All the time.
And all the time,
God is good.
And you are great. Amen.